Everyone, Stephen Lowisz here with GTM Secrets. It's been a little bit. We took a few weeks off, but we're back in action and we have some pretty cool people lined up. Today, I have Adam Griffin, and he and I were already talking. For those of you that have listened a while, and we've had B2G, business to government people on here once or twice before. Any of you have heard that I just told Adam, I rather eat lead than sell to the government. I have once and I'll never do it again. Not my forte. But today I have a guy that has sold, I think you said what, for a decade into either the government or agencies?
Yeah, 2 decades into government-funded agencies. Yep.
Yeah, so God bless you, Adam. But welcome, Adam Griffin. Adam, I don't want to steal your thunder. Do you mind giving a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. I started out selling education, ed tech, back in the days of fax machines and before
You're
emails.
dating yourself.
Yeah, I've been doing it a while. I did that for 16 years after ed tech, got into GovTech, and so for the last 7 years or so, been in GovTech, selling software, selling SaaS. Recently, adding a little bit of hardware in, but mainly selling to government-funded agencies, going after federal dollars, local dollars, state dollars.
So, excuse me, Cot Systems, where you're at now, my research says that you guys sell record systems, right? Record keeping.
Yeah, land records management, keeping up with marriage licenses, obviously marriage licenses, deeds, register of deeds offices, old records. We do scanning, but we do have a software that actually, when you go in and you can actually register your property, register your marriage license, and then it automatically gets put into a system.
Got it. I think the could be wrong, but I want to say that the military had a bunch of records in a cave, and they all went bye-bye. Just rows upon rows of filing cabinets. So I'd like the government to use your stuff. I'm all for it. How'd you get into gov sales in the first place?
I think it was a natural transition from being in educational sales, because obviously going after more local dollars in education.
Schools directly?
Schools, and then federally funded Head Start, for-profit child daycare.
Okay.
It's a little different sale, but it was a natural transition into still going after the dollars that the government has to spend on a yearly basis. Everyone knows about the budget cycle, so that's just kind of used to it.
So in government sales, is it mostly RFPs? Is it negotiating with government leaders? I mean, I'm sure it's a mix of both, but let's start there. Are you doing a lot of RFPs, or is it actually getting to know these people and build relationships?
It's more the latter. RFPs are a big part of government sales. To try to keep everyone on a level playing field. There are ways around that. A lot of time RFPs is one way to say, you know what, I don't want to work with a salesperson, so we're going to have to do an RFP, and when it comes out, I'll let you know. A lot of salespeople will say okay, and then let it sit. But
Yeah,
we try to avoid RFPs.
I've done, back when I was in enterprise sales, I've done a handful of those, and it takes the quality and relationship building out completely. You're right. Well, government, tell me if I'm wrong, some of it's probably mandated depending on who you're selling to, but I tried to avoid them like the plague. Absolutely. And if you build relationships, right, tell me if I'm wrong. I won a couple of RFPs by building that relationship, but they had to check the box with the RFP, and we were kind of a shoe-in.
Oh, yeah.
You see that happen?
Yeah, but I mean, it was more back in the older days where you could actually, and back in the older days when you can actually set the specifications, and you can make the rules. So when they did the opening of the RFP at the school board, then there was only one bid to open. So I mean, it was relationship depending on how soon you get into the RFP conversation. You can totally take advantage of that and put together your specs to where no one else can actually respond. That's harder nowadays, but
So we talked about this a little bit before, but without getting into politics, although I think you and I probably agree, I could see Doge helping you because it's all about efficiency, and while records management, I think, falls under that category, but they're also reducing spend. Has it affected you and Cot in any way?
not at this point. We haven't seen anybody specifically talking about, well, we can't do this because we have to cut a particular budget line. So it hasn't come up in conversations as we're renewing contracts or adding new contracts or even doing scanning jobs and taking the physical documents and making them digital. But this is more of an essential need at the government level than where I was last time, which is
Can't have efficiency if you don't have your crap straight. Okay, cool. Now let's dive in, get a little more tactical. So, who is your ICP? What kind of agency? Who at the agency or government? Whatever.
right now we're working with the Register of Deeds or the Superior Clerks, courts, deputy clerks, anyone who's dealing with the public with different types of documentation that have to be recorded. So really,
County level?
county level. Well, in the Northeast, we're working with townships, which is a whole different kind of client. But for the most part of the clients we have, most of them are at the county level.
Tell me if I'm wrong. In B2B sales, which is where I play, a lot of the smaller companies are the hardest sales, and the ones with money are like, here, wired you the money, let's go. I'm curious which one's actually harder. Is it the smaller local type townships? Is it county, federal? I'm sure that they're all slow processes, but what do you find easier?
I guess it varies. Some of the counties are smaller counties, but the smaller townships are very budget conscious. So we're not talking huge deals here, but for them, they're watching every penny because every line item matters.
Yep.
So it's not an RFP process. We're in the budget already. How much are we in the budget for? So there's nothing easy about it because our largest states are counties, but we have one of the states where we have the most clients is townships. So as far as revenue, it's counties, but as far as numbers, it's townships.
Yeah, it makes sense. Same kind of deal in B2B. We work with a lot of small businesses, but the mid-market businesses and I'd say early enterprise, we're not enterprise ready yet. Like Fortune 1000, we're not ready yet, but they definitely make up more revenue, to say the least.
Yes.
So let's talk about the demand gen side first. Are you doing demand gen yourself? Do you have a team doing that? What does it look like?
Define your demand gen for me, and I can tell you.
I outreach to these people, letting them know that you exist.
Yeah, so that's us. That's our team. We really don't have a marketing department at this point in time.
Okay. So if you want to go target a county, who the heck do you target for something like this?
Well, we're expanding that outreach as far as different targets within the county, but it is the clerk of courts. It is the register of deeds right now. It's that specific office that deals with specific records that all of us actually deal with. But I've never been to for myself, but I have now to a register of deeds office to put in a land record or put in my marriage license, or I've just never been there. But that's our target. We're starting to branch out and talk to other departments because everyone has records that are sitting there that need to be scanned in and put in a safe spot so they can be accessed at any point in time.
Yep, makes sense. But okay, I know corporate titles all day long. What is a title in the deeds department of a county?
A title, register of deeds is the title.
What, like that's a person or that's
yeah. It's an elected official. Yep.
I didn't know that that's an elected official. I guess I should pay closer attention to my ballot when I vote. I gotta say, I pay more attention to like state and federal than I do local, which shame on me. I think most people are probably like that. So, okay, you reach out to them. And tell me if I'm wrong. I bet one of the first inhibitors that you have is if they have a system in place, they're under contract for what, 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So do you have any tech that monitors when those contracts might be coming up, or is it a complete crapshoot and you're hoping it's soon?
As far as that's not our contract, is that what you mean?
Right. When you're going after a new target they have to be using something, right? Hopefully not filing cabinets, maybe, but if they're using one of your competitors, how do you monitor, or can you, when their contracts are likely coming up?
That's right now. That's more on a relationship level, and then getting that.
You do have to do outreach, and they may tell you, "Hey, we're 3 years out from caring about this in any way."
Correct. Yes.
All right. Well, that sucks. Those contracts aren't public record.
I would think they would be, but then again, I'm not sure. I couldn't say certainty that is something, but it's It's a public office, so you probably could find out exactly what they're paying with some FOIA, but it's more relationship based, whether it's at a show or through conversations. And, how long do you have on your contract? Well, we have 18 months. And, so then you start the whole process of trying to figure out if you can be a resource when they're ready.
So you mentioned shows. How do you get in front of these people? Is it email and cold call? Is it mostly shows and networking? Like, what does that outreach look like?
It's everything. It's all three. It's going to shows, the local shows. So there's, depending on the state, there's up to 2 to 4 a year. And then it is outreach, email, outreach, cold calling. Not a lot of LinkedIn, because a lot of our
I
market's
wouldn't
not
think
on.
so.
Yeah, a lot of our market's not on LinkedIn. So it's mainly those three channels.
I imagine they're on LinkedIn, but they're the person with an unfilled out profile and 5 connections.
Yeah, I mean they're not active. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
yeah.
No,
They're working all day, so they're not scrolling LinkedIn looking for, things to do or people to comment with.
I gotcha. So I want to dive into the weeds a little bit here. So just take email to start.
Okay.
Okay, if you're selling into the government, they have firewalls out the wazoo. I imagine that you got to pay attention, deliverability, etc. But you also have to reach out and have a unique enough value prop for a records management system. I get the differences like between Salesforce and HubSpot. That's easy, but I have no idea what the differences in record management systems would be. I mean, if they were if they manage records, I don't know how you would create a value prop from there. I'm very naive in this space. So walk me through, like, is it all one-to-one manual emails? How do you actually get them opened? Because again, deliverability, what does that pitch sound like? Like, give me the landscape.
Well, I mean, the good thing about GovTech, Stephen, that it's not eating iron. Most of the information, most of the people we're reaching out to are out there, so it's not hard to find out who we need to talk to and who we need to call, because
Sure.
they put it out on the website. They almost 99% of them have their email and a phone number right there with their picture. So that's not the hard part. The message, it depends on, you got to figure out timing, because it depends on timing what the message is. Yeah, so I mean, it's land records, different features, different functionality, different customer service. So there are some things that can make you stand out, or make you more competitive with the other people out there doing it. So it's just a matter of figuring out how, or figuring out the pain points and figuring out what angle to go after.
Is email effective? And let me qualify that. Like in B2B, and everyone's using fancy AI tools, whether it's Clay, GPT, whatever, right? And they are getting bombarded with nonstop emails, and they all sound the same because AI is inherently generic. Yes, you can prompt it really well, but it's inherently generic because it's what's on the internet. And email is getting less and less effective, way harder than it's ever been.
Yes.
I'm finding that cold calls are coming back. Is that the same in government? I can't imagine these people are getting hit up at the same rate as, like, my ICP is B2B mid-market marketers.
Right.
But what works best?
Well, I mean they are getting hit up by maybe not as much, but for me it's emails. Everyone's getting emails. I mean, hundreds of emails, and the response rate's typically not very good.
No.
Um, calls every day. Cold calling is way harder than it was back in 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
But this particular section of the market, I gotta say, Stephen, they are some really nice people. Like, you can get them on the phone and they are very happy to talk to you for a little bit until they figure out, if you're calling just to check in, then yeah, it goes south pretty fast. But this segment of GovTech is, they're very likable, nice people. Not to say that the other market I worked in wasn't. There's just way different.
I get, well, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I assume if it's an elected official, they at least have to put on a nice face regardless. And maybe they're genuine. I don't know, but I imagine that when they pick up the phone, they tend to have to be nicer.
Yeah, well, that might be one reason. It's amazing when they get on the phone how their tone is completely different than calling a building official in, you know, Minnesota, who's like,
Sure.
"What do you want?"
I've heard more than one f off, in my past.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but It's not off, or it's not uncommon. Okay, so you pick up the phone, you call these people. They say, "Hey, we're a year or 18 months out on our contract. To talk to me then." That's when the relationship building really starts, right?
Yep.
So, how do you nurture those leads? How do you stay on top of mind? How do you develop that?
So for me, it's it as you probably remember or know, GovTech is a long sales cycle.
Oh yeah,
So you have to be intentional. Every outreach, every touch has to be intentional. It can't be the sales touch that I'm just checking in. Hey,
man,
you
how you
know,
doing?
yeah, did you see the headline? I can't believe you guys had a festival, yada yada yada, because they see right through that. And that's what they're getting. So it's the relationship part and calling with intention and being relevant. So the relationship, you can have a good relationship with someone if you don't talk, even though if you don't talk to them every 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months, because you have to be relevant. And what I mean by that is we can talk forever, Stephen, but until you're actually ready to do something, the conversations that we have won't mean a whole lot to you if we're just doing the fluff.
Can you give me an example? Like, okay, again, translating this to B2B,
Yeah.
which I think is a simpler version of B2G. Same concept, way different sales cycle. When I reach out to somebody, like we compete with like 6sense and Demand Base, really really big platforms if you're not familiar, and a lot of them are under contract. It's hard to resonate with them in a way where it's not just BS and they see right through it, right? Like, hey, did you see this happen in the market or whatever? Can you give me an example, and make it up, obviously, but can you give me an example of the type of checking in you do without just being a sleazy sales guy?
Yeah. So an example, let's just say we're working, I'm in North Carolina. So I live in Davidson County. My neighboring county is Forsyth County. So let's just say I land a deal, any type of deal, a small scanning deal with Davidson County. I'm talking to him or her. I'll ask, how often do you talk with so and so in Forsyth County? And we might have a brief conversation, intentional conversation. Now I can call the person in Forsyth County and say, hey, I was just talking with John about you, because that's real. It's true, because I just got off the phone with John.
Yep.
And then I have to have a reason for the call after that. But that's a reason to call. Not because, oh, I was just driving through downtown and gosh, you guys have a beautiful skyscraper. I mean,
No
that's
one
what we're
cares.
doing now. That's what salespeople are doing now. And you have one of the best offices I've ever seen. Who cares? No one cares. So it's got to be intentional.
Do you use, what does your daily sales stack look like? Is it literally just open Chrome, search for people and email and pick up the phone and call? Are you guys using any sales engagement tools that help you conduct outreach more efficiently? Are you guys using any like intent signals? I mean, I'm talking B2B language here, but what is what softwares do you use?
Right now we have Salesforce,
I'm
and
a big
then
Salesforce proponent.
we're using that, and then we're trying out a couple of different softwares to kind of consolidate everything into one spot. So we have our Outlook, our Salesforce, our LinkedIn all in one spot instead of having to open 4 different things, keeping everything. So I don't know how it's going to work right now because I'm 3 weeks into it, but
You're using a tool that combines all three of those.
yes.
Can you name the tool? I'm curious. I haven't heard of that.
It's well right now what we're 3 weeks into using Chrono.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
It's just like Salesforce. It consolidates everything to where you can
Oh,
do your cadences and sequences. You can have your opportunities. It's integrated with Salesforce. It's integrated with your Outlook, and you can throw. If I do find you on LinkedIn, I can throw you into Chrono as a lead or a prospect, and then you get added to my daily task. I can put you in any of the sequences that are made up, and so it's
so are you doing any And by the way, I don't even do this, so this isn't like a sales pitch. I'm just curious as to what you guys use. I don't even do this piece, but are you guys doing anything like monitoring automatically, like, hey, this person just got elected or whatever? It's a good reason to reach out. I don't know what other indicators you would have in your space, but do you guys do anything like that?
Google Alerts is what I've used in the past. Um, I wouldn't I wouldn't call after someone got elected because that would be just like the checking in. It's
True.
it's it's kind of the easy default. Congratulations, you got, I voted for you. Whatever. So, but yeah, it's just stuff like that. I mean, back in the old days, it was newspapers. So we'd actually get newspapers from our territory and scroll through those to kind of be more relevant. But yeah, Google Alerts works really well, and it fills up your inbox. You just have to, filter through the different emails and see what might be worth talking about.
The theme I'm hearing, everyone seems to just want scalable, 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 and they end up again sounding like everybody else. Some of the old school stuff is coming back, like genuine manual research to figure out a way in, cold calls, etc. I put up a post just the other day. People don't need more scalability; they need more intelligence and outreach and quality outreach, etc. That's the theme that I'm getting from you too. Tell me if I'm off base here.
No, I mean, it's of late, I guess, I don't know, late couple of years. It's sales has turned into kind of a turn and burn. It's a numbers game, so forth and so on. But everyone is leading with I, and it all matter. The phrase that I can't stand is I would love for you to see my software. I'd love to do a demo. I'd love to send you information. That's what we're doing as a profession, because it's not intentional and you're not trying to be relevant. You just want to get a proposal. You just want to get a demo booked. You want to get quota. And so
Yep.
you're focused on, I talked to Steven for 5 minutes. Let's go on to John. Let's go on to Susie. And I run into Steven at a show and you walk up and say hello. And I'm like, I'm not sure who you are. We just talked last week. And so that, unfortunately, is where a lot of us BDRs, SDRs, that's where we are. Turn and burn.
Yep.
Let's hit my numbers. Let's get my KPIs, and the numbers should follow. But we're losing intentionality.
I mean, I'm in sales tech, martech, and obviously, again, on the B2B side, it's everyone's using their tech bills are insane, right? Everyone's trying to automate, use
Yep.
AI,
Yeah.
do something. And I'm all for it if done tastefully and to encourage relationships, not just to, here's my Calendly link, schedule a demo with me, that sort of
Yeah.
a deal. It doesn't work. You sound like everyone else. You may get lucky once in a while, but I would rather have results as opposed to just scalable outreach. And shame on any sales leader that is just focused on outreach numbers. What would you, switching gears here a little bit, what would you recommend if somebody wanted to get into gov sales? Because my hunch is that it can be very, very lucrative, but it's also super, super difficult. What would you recommend to somebody?
As far as getting in,
Yeah.
it's just no. It's a relationship sale, and it's a long sales cycle. So it's not you're not going to call up someone on a June 1st and typically close a new deal for software by June 30th. It doesn't work that way. Now, I will say that with different funding streams, it certainly can work that way because of how they have to spend dollars. But typically that's still based on a relationship because someone's not going to call and give you $250,000 deal if they just met you for the first time. It's a
Right.
relationship. It's a long sales cycle. If you're getting into it, I'd just go back to be relevant and be intentional with your outreach. Don't send an email every week just to send an email. If you're going to send an email, make it worth something, and please don't start it with the word I. I can't.
No.
It just
One of the first things that I was recommended when I started in sales was write an email and then look through it, replace every I or we or reference to your company with something about them.
yeah,
100%.
exactly. I get emails every day from salespeople, and I looked at your profile, and I think that you'd be a great candidate for what we do because we do this. I'm like, delete.
My favorite, and I've said this before on this podcast, but my dad's name is Steve Lowisz. I'm not a junior, different middle name.
Right.
But I on LinkedIn for some more separation, because I used to work for him, like same company, same, former address, you name it. So I put Steven in my first name on LinkedIn. And then when you reach out as, hey, Steven, screw off. Like, no. No, if you're going to automate it, at least take the time to screen out stuff like that. Like there are ways to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So every day I get LinkedIn messages or in mail saying, "Hey, Stephen M," and just I delete it immediately. I don't even care if it's something I'm interested in. Earn the business.
Yeah, I mean, try something different.
Exactly. If you were new to sales and you wanted to get a government sales job, what kind of experience do you need?
Well, you might not need a whole lot depending on where you are and where you want to start, because obviously SDRs are big. So that would be, I guess, your easiest path of least resistance with some of the bigger companies. And if you can get through if you can get through that grind and learn, then obviously you have to step up little by little depending on the company you're with. But or you go with the smaller company that needs someone to do the hunting and the farming, and you just have to start at a lower salary. And I would say if you really want to get in, go in and say, listen, I want to be straight commission.
Who would say no to that?
You're right. You give me a year. You give me because I was straight commission for 9 years, but you give me a year of salary, and give me a year to grow my pipeline, and then year two you let me go straight commission, and you tell them what you want based off look at the deal size and so forth and so on.
Yep.
And if you really wanted to get into it, that'd be one way to do it. But nowadays, no one. I haven't talked to anybody who's doing straight commission now because it's tough.
I think people are risk adverse, to say the least. I've never done straight. Well, I've worked for myself since I was 16.
Well, there you go.
I in the last 15 years, I've probably worked for somebody for 5 or 6. Owning a business is like straight commission on steroids, right?
It is,
because you got to pay for all this shit.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know about B2G, but in B2B, people hate the SDR role. It used to be that if you did your time, the necessary evil of cranking out calls. I used to make 100 a day manually, like no automation. It used to be do that for like 18 months, 2 years, and then you're rock solid and never need to do it again. People are trying to get away with like 3 months in cold calling burnout and get an AE job. Like we've grown soft. This is super helpful, Adam. Like I said, I hate selling into government, but I think it's very indicative of what works in enterprise sales on the B2B side. Slight differences, but I still think the tactics are going to be relevant to each other, to say the least. Is there any other advice, tips, tricks that you would recommend?
Yeah, I guess the big one, especially, you mentioned contracts earlier, and to be relevant, a lot of people, and I talk to my team now about this, like we're doing this every day, right? So we're calling into these people who do their day job. They don't switch software, they don't buy software, they don't migrate data, they don't do that. So for us, you should be, or try to be, the consultant and the expert. And so one of your questions earlier was, what do you do? I mean, they're in a 3-year contract, or they have a year and a half left on the contract. At that point in time, you have to figure out their purchasing process, whether it's purchasing, whether it's going through and figuring out if they want to stay, whatever their evaluation/purchasing process is. You have to figure that out as early as possible, because that's the only way you can be relevant.
Yep.
If you don't know when they're going to start talking about a change, then you can't be part of the conversation.
Tell me if you disagree. I think one of the things that people forget is, okay, someone's up to bid or change out software, whatever, and then we just start selling them. One of my favorite one, I'm super informal, but one of my favorite things is, look, I want to earn your business the right way. What's the criteria you're using to say, I'm going to jump up and down, this is our guy, or software, whatever. And you actually find out what they care about. Whereas I think most people just go into, well, glad you're up for bid. Let me tell you why I'm so awesome. You sound like everyone else.
Yeah. My go-to question is, because no one's baby's ugly. I mean,
just had 2.
Congratulations.
I had twin girls like a month ago.
Oh, wow. All right, man. Well, I can't tell you what my brother-in-law said when I had my first girl, because it might not be edited out, but don't worry about it. But the one thing I always ask, instead of saying, hey, your software might really stink, ours is better, I ask, when do you sit down with your team and talk about enhancements? Because everyone wants to get better, and they always meet. And as long as you ask the question, like, well, we sit down every quarter. Some people just say, okay, great. Well, when during the quarter do you sit down?
Yep.
And then they tell me, and I said, great. So if I call you the next week, what information will you guys be talking about? And it turns into what we don't do anymore. Worked with lots of salespeople. I get lots of sales calls. No one asks questions anymore. We all assume we know exactly what. I know what you mean because you said it, so I assume and I know exactly what you mean, and that's where everyone's dropping the ball. And it is laughable when you listen to recorded calls and you go over call sessions, and I'll stop and say, "What do you think they meant?" "Oh, they meant this, this, and this, and this." I was like, "How do you know?"
That's a
Because they
lot of it.
said, "Yeah,
I mean,
that's a lot of assumptions," and that's exactly where deals get lost. And so it's the process. I always ask the enhancement because nobody's baby's ugly. And I'm sure yours are beautiful.
I think so. I'm
Yes.
told that, but who's going to go up to you and say, hey, your baby's ugly?
Right.
I get it. Adam, this is awesome. I really appreciate it, man. I think a lot of people listening will get a lot out of this, even if they're not in B2G, translating that to B2B, maybe even B2C. I don't know.
That's for me, that's tough. That is tough. That's harder than GovTech, man. For me.
I used to do door to door in high school. I was making more than my teachers running a landscaping company, my own, just little lawnmower and whatnot before I could drive even. Door to door consumer sales is hard. You better get thick skin.
That's paying your dues right there.
Yes. Adam, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place? LinkedIn?
Yeah. I'm on there. Adam Griffin with an E and not an I-N.
All right. Well, I encourage people go connect with Adam unless you're trying to sell him on shit. Because no one wants that. Adam, really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it.